Welcome. So, new lesson in the method section. So, in this lesson, we will learn about ethical considerations. That first, we will start by ethical consideration in engineering in general. I think that's an important topic. So that's part one. But then part two, which is uh, equally important for you and especially for this class is in your research proposal and your research report there is like an remember part of your rubric that you looked at when you were in your class participation for the method development, for example. Part of that was in this rubric is ethical considerations. So we will learn about this ethical considerations that you need to include in your proposal and report next semester. Yeah, and general ethical considerations that you need to consider when conducting research. But let's start. So in this, the objective, like by the end of this lesson, you will understand like ethical responsibility. Your ethical responsibility as an engineer is very important, absolutely important, as we will see now. Learn how to address ethical consideration in each step in your research, like when you plan for your research, when you conduct your research, after you conduct your research, when you analyze your data, when you publish. At each of these stages, what are the ethical considerations that you need to consider? And that doesn't mean that all these ethical considerations will apply to your research. Some of them may, some of them may not, and maybe none of them will apply to your research, depending on what you're doing. Yeah. Uh, and then you will identify. So that's your participation activity. Is that you should be able to identify ethical considerations that you need to address in your specific research proposal. So that's what you should be able to do by the end of this video. Okay, so let's get started. Ethics in engineering and research. Now, I like this definition uh, for ethics in engineering. I love this definition. So this is the Encyclopedia Britannica define engineering as or definition for engineering actually, not just ethics engineering, definition for engineering. Like engineering as a professional art of applying science. So engineering is applying science. Scientists they develop knowledge, they understand things, but engineering they do things. So they apply this knowledge and this understanding to create new things that has never been. So there is a famous quote that scientists understand nature as is, while engineers create what is new type of nature, a new form of nature, what has not been created yet. Yeah. So you basically you apply uh, this knowledge applied for. Now here is what I like about this. Yeah. Let me do some writing maybe here. Yeah. Let's do this. For yeah, you apply this knowledge for optimum conservation of natural resources. Yeah, optimal conservation of natural resources. So like here, like it's like you have two terms here. Yeah, so you have like like you have conservation. So you need to conserve, not waste, and not only you need to conserve. That's like the optimal conservation. So you need even to optimize this conservation, not wasting. And that shows you that like a lot maybe of the engineering that we are doing does not follow like this definition because some engineering that we do, it could be wasteful. Like we could be wasteful, wasting energy, we could be wasting resources. Yeah. We could be wasting our natural resources and energy. Uh, Okay, so let's now, giving this definition, let's look at two types of ethics. Yeah, so one is something called like the micro ethic. Micro ethics, that's simple. That's like you need to be like an honest person. Like that's like as an individual, individual and responsible conduct of your research or work. So basically, that's like there is an honest person and dishonest person. That's like a micro ethics. Yeah, it's like you are just like a civilized and decent person. Yeah, that's like micro ethics, like civilized, honest, and decent person. Yeah, that's like micro ethics. And I don't want to talk much about this because that should be clear for most of us. Like what is decent, what is like being a jerk or being, and what is responsible and what's irresponsible, and what's honest and what's dishonest. To that's clear, yeah. But now this is called microethics, as that you are like an honest person. But there is a different types of ethics which is called like macro ethics. So macro ethics, that is like social responsibility of scientists and engineers. So that's something different. So here, like I could be an honest person and a decent person and civilized person. But that's different than being like macro ethics, yeah, because macro ethics, this is social responsibility of scientists and engineers. So this means that I have a social responsibility. I need to be useful. Whatever engineering or research that I'm doing, it needs to be useful. It needs to serve a purpose and be useful for the society in general. So let's look at this in detail. And that's a very important distinction. There's a distinction between being like honest and being like have social responsibility or being like useful. Whatever you are doing is useful. Yeah. Uh, I mean, let me give you even an example. Like, so as an instructor, I could be a very honest instructor. I could treat all the students fairly. I could do my job fairly, like great, do honest grading for the student work, yeah, and do like, so that's like I'm doing my job as an honest person. So that's micro ethics. Macro ethics, I could be doing this, but the course that I'm teaching could be useless, yeah. So that's macro ethics. That it's not only you need to be honest, but you need to have the social responsibility. Like the course that I am teaching, it should be, I'm just not honestly conducting my work, but it should be something that would be useful for the student, helps them to advance their career, helps them to advance their skill, helps them to get a job, or help like prepares them to get a job. Not necessarily like, not every and each course you teach will be directly related or connected to a job. Like for example, you're teaching, I don't know, like calculus course or engineering mechanics or whatever. This will develop like your problem solving skills, but not necessarily will get you like a job. Yeah, but could. That doesn't mean it wouldn't, but it could, but not necessarily. Yeah. Course like this, for example, like what you are learning like some soft skills, and these soft skills, technical writing, for example, like critical thinking, how to read like this peer-reviewed literature and find like wealth of information there. Later on, we will learn about also like how to prepare like publication quality figure, how to improve your presentation skills. So these soft skills, which are very these are soft skills, so these are very useful for your career advancement. So that's probably like a very like would be like a very useful course if you like for your career. Yeah. Okay, so let's look here. This is like your participation activity number one. So here I provided like a American Society of Civil Engineers Code of Ethics. Uh, so basically, like what I want you to do, I want you to like read the American Society Code of Ethics and identify one macro and one micro ethical consideration from this code that seems challenging for you to maintain or achieve, and discuss why these are challenging for you. Okay, so let's look at this. Yeah. So if we open this here, uh, so that would be, you can find it in different formats. This is like a standard paper size format, and this is, I think, like in this format, just one page. Yeah. So let's look. I think this is more clearer here. So let's look at it. I think that's useful to look at it here in this context. So here, member of the American Society of Civil Engineers conduct themselves with integrity and professionalism, and all above all else, protect and advance health. So you see here, protect and advance health, safety, welfare of the public through practice of civil engineering. Is this micro or macro ethics? That's macro ethics. So you see here, let's read it carefully. Engineer conducts themselves with integrity and professionalism. This is what? This is micro ethics. Like I'm an honest, decent, civilized person. Yeah. Nice person, not a jerk, not something like this. Yeah. And above all else, see now, so this is a macro ethics, but above all else, they should protect and advance the health, safety, and welfare of the public. So that is macro ethics through the practice of civil engineering. So protects and advance the health, safety, and welfare. So welfare, again, this will, according to the definition of Britannica Encyclopedia, that would include, for example, conserving optimal conservation of natural resource. That is part of the welfare and the health and safety. So you see here, engineer govern their professional career on the following fundamental principle. Uh, Create safe, resilient, and sustainable infrastructure. Again, this is macro ethics. Treat all person with respect, dignity, fairness in a manner that foster equitable participation without regard to personal identity. That is microethics. Consider the current and anticipated needs of the society. Macroethics. Utilize their knowledge and skill to enhance quality life for humanity. Macroethics. So you see here one microethics and three macroethics. Yeah. And natural, like so you see here, and this is let's read this. So all members of the American Society of Civil Engineers, regardless of their membership, grade, or job description, commit to all the following ethical responsibility. In the case of conflict between ethical responsibility, the five stakeholders are listed in the order of priority. There is no priority for responsibility within giving a stakeholder group with the exception that task precedes over all other responsibilities. So task 1A, engineer first and foremost protects the health, safety, and public welfare. See, macro ethics, that is the one that proceed overall, and that's, by the way, is very challenging. So like if you will read like here, natural environment, for example, adhere to the principle of sustainable development, consider and balance societal, environmental, economic impacts along with opportunity for improvement in their work, mitigate adverse societal and environmental and economic effect. Here, use resources wisely while maintaining resource depletion. That is, for example, something very difficult to maintain. Like for example, here in the USA, like the cities that we design, like as an engineer, for example, you work on urban planning, you know ahead that this city that you are designing, they are energy intensive. Like the amount of energy that we will be using here will be maybe like two or three times in like a comparable, like, or even better cities like in Germany, for example, or in Europe. Yeah, because here we design the city to be like with not all of them, but like many of them, we design them in a way that they'll have no public transportation, and you will depend on like your own private vehicle, and the public transportation would then be. This means that you are wasting resources. You are wasting natural resources with respect to like car manufacturing, with respect to, most importantly, with respect to energy and fossil fuel and climate impacts and air quality impacts and so on and so forth. Yeah, so sometimes so if I will, like, for example, if I was an urban planner, and what is my biggest challenge here would be to use resource wisely while minimizing resource depletion. I know that I'm not using resources wisely, uh, because this pattern of development where I create cities that are not walking friendly, like when I create cities that's not walking friendly, I know that this will have health impact. You'll have like you start to have obesity, you'll start to have heart problems, you will start to have even get like some the diabetes problems because you get like all these things could work together because people will be moving less, walking less, and they will be car dependent. Yeah. So I know. So these are would be some of the challenges. So that's basically. I'm not going to read this one by one, but I just give you an example of some of the challenges that I will have, for example, as an urban planner or a transportation engineer. So read this and do like this exercise and comment on one another. Discuss why is it a challenge and also comment on one another. Like what, like here, what I want you to do is not like don't take this as something that you have to do, but just take this as something fun, as a discussion that you will have with your colleagues and your classmates. So you post something, then one of you will respond to another, then you respond back. Like have these types of discussion, yeah, but keep it civilized. Yeah, keep it civilized and ethical. Don't get into fights or argument. Yeah. But anyway, so that's a fun activity to do. I would say just read this and discuss what you find to be challenging, like a micro ethics challenge and the macro ethics challenge, and and uh, and discuss with your classmate. Okay. Okay. Uh, Ethical issue of your choice. So that would be like in the next few slides, 4 or 5 slides, I think we will learn about ethical issues, that typical ethical issues that we encounter in research. So what I want you to do, I want you like this lesson cover ethical issues in the research process. So I want you to select an ethical issue that's most critical to your research and discuss with the class. Like discuss with the class why this ethical issue would be the main issue, like with respect to the research that I am doing. Yeah. So so I'm giving you the activity so that when you watch this few slides, you will keep this in mind, keep this activity in mind so that you write it down, yeah, and say, oh, maybe this is the one that pertains to me. Okay, so let's get started. So here is, I will just go with like is so where in the process of research the ethical issue occur. So prior to conducting your study, where do you think where the ethical issue will occur? So first of all, you need to examine professional association standard. So consult like the code of ethics for your professional association and in your area, which we just did now. So that's the first and foremost. That's what we did now. Like we consulted the code of ethics for the American Society of Civil Engineers, which cover for other students who are taking this course, like in computer science. So the American Society of Civil Engineers, that will cover the construction management and the water students. But for other students who are taking this class like computer science, for example, you need to find this code of ethics for your professional association in your area. Yeah, so you need to find this, and on Canvas, I'm providing some resources. Yeah, for this. So examine professional association standard. Now, here, seek college or university approval on campus through an institutional review board. So now here a lot of you, especially like construction management student, from my previous experience, what the research is based on interviewing. So like they deal with human subject, like so they will go to a company, like give them a tool and tell the engineer in this company or the construction worker in this company to use this tool, and then they will come and evaluate them, interview them so that they can get feedback on the tools that they develop and how it is effective, how it's helpful, what improvements that's needed. Or other student, for example, one other student, her work was to enter like on heat stress and how heat stress is affecting the life of the construction worker outside work. Yeah. So you see here, this require an institutional review board. Generally speaking, okay, now generally speaking, for coursework, you do like this institutional review board. That's a long process. Yeah. So like you basically you have to contact the university. And so in the FGCU, they you like or where. any institution you will go to other university, you find like their institutional review board. So the FGCU will write, for example, IRB, like FGCU IRB, then you will find it. Like, I mean, let's do this now. Yeah, yeah, you can just do it now. Yeah. So like you go here, FGCU IRB. Yeah. So here, institution review board. I mean, wherever you are at, whatever university you are, you just write IRB, and then this will take you to the steps that you need. But this is time consuming. So for a class work, you generally don't need to apply for an institution review board. But so like class work, I mean like this research method class and the project class, which you'll do next semester. But some students, they are required to do this. So you need to check with your supervisor. Why? Because if you are doing a thesis, you would require to do this. That's for sure. So if you are doing this, because the project course is not thesis. This is like it's not even a mini thesis. This is just a project. Yeah. But if you are doing a thesis, you would need like an institutional review board. That's for sure. Now, also check with your supervisor because some of the students last semester, they were working with their supervisor on research topics that they are planning to publish later on. So if you are planning to publish later on, then you like, so I had one student, for example, last semester, construction management student, she was working with her instructor, like her supervisor, and that's something that they're planning to publish. So she was applying for an institutional review board. Other students, they were not planning on publishing, so they didn't apply for an institution. If you are planning for publishing and for a publication, you need to do this because once you submit your publication, if you don't have an institution review board and you conducted this work, like interviewed human subject without approval, and you start basically like in this process, you will say, okay, you will tell the institution review board, this is the studies that I'm doing, this is the objective of this study, I will be interviewing so and so and so, this is the interview question, and they have to read this interview question and approve this interview question, and you don't go outside this interview question, for example. Yeah. Or if there are deviations, then you need to account for that. Yeah. So basically, you might need to account. But either case, whether you're going to apply for institution review board or you didn't apply for institution review board, in your report, I need to see this. Like if you are dealing with human subject and you didn't mention like IRB and institution review board, you will lose some points even if you're not applying for it. You said like this research require an institution review board. I will like if I will do this for publication, I will later apply for institutional review board. Or for this coursework, like I will not do it for this coursework, but it requires. Yeah. Because I don't want to make it like too cumbersome or too difficult for you. So don't need to like for just like this course and the project course, you don't need it. But for publication, for thesis, you will need it. Yeah. Gain local permission from site and participants. So that's important. And this could be time consuming. Like, for example, I worked in a site in Hawaii or on a project in Hawaii, and that lot of the research, I mean, it was not my research, but for other faculty, their research got delayed because the process of obtaining permission was time consuming. It could take like a year or more just to get permission. I worked on some sites, for example, like one site I worked on was like uh, near the peak of one of the highest peak in the big island in Hawaii. And for the native, like for the local culture, these high peaks, these are considered sacred sites. So when you uh, even get permission, you uh, uh, from the one who are managing these sites, like you go up, like we didn't hike, like you use a car, like there you go up to this side. Like if they tell you don't go to the summit or don't go near the summit, just respect this and don't like do your work, your field work, just away from the summit and don't go to the summit. But you and when you get permission, you should discuss these details with the agencies that or the uh, key personnel who are giving you this permission. Yeah. Select a site without a vested interest in the outcome of the study. So don't select site where there would like raise the power issues like with researchers or with like local community. So for example, Uh, you want like in water quality monitoring project, like you aim to evaluate the impact of agricultural runoff on a nearby river. So avoid selecting a site directly managed by a large agricultural corporation. Why? Because if you selected this, that could create a conflict of interest if this corporation like attempted, for example, to influence the data collection or restrict access to certain area. Like instead, what should you do? Like so, instead, select a public watershed site or collaborate with local environmental agency to help you to select like the site, like an appropriate site that will not raise any power issue among all the stakeholders in the region. Yeah. So this will ensure like neutrality and you avoid any undue like power dynamics that might affect the study objective integrity and like your data transparency. This negotiate authorship for publication. So before you start a publication, you can negotiate like authorship. Usually, the one who writes the work would be like the first author, so the one who takes the lead in writing this down and submitting it and handling. So you negotiate like who will be the first author. Usually, the one who's managing, like who obtains the fund and managing the work, he will be the corresponding author because that's the one who would pay for the publication fee, but also any correspondence related to the publication. He's the one who's managing the work, so he's generally the corresponding author. But this could be negotiated also, yeah. And yeah, so that's and who will like the authorship order. So that's like it's always a good idea to negotiate this before you start working, yeah, your work. And okay, so that's before working. Like beginning of the studies, what like at the beginning of the study, uh, identify research problems that will be benefit to participant. Like we talked about this macro ethics, and we talked about this like over and over again. Don't waste your time in something that's not useful, and useful means like useful for the community. I mean, it should be useful for you also, but don't waste your something that's not useful for the general community and the participant of your study. So like if the participant like those who will participate in your study, whatever you're doing, it should be beneficial to them. Disclose the purpose of the study, so do not hide things. Do not like inform the participant about the intent of your study and how you're going to use this data. Do not pressure participant into signing contest form. So tell them, oh, you don't have to sign this contest form and force them to do this. So tell them you don't like. Tell them this is like participants. They don't have to sign form. Like if you want to sign participation form, you can. Otherwise, you don't have to. Yeah. Respect norms and character of the place and especially of indigenous society. So you need like if you're working with indigenous society, you need to learn about their culture and you need to know what they like and what they don't like, and you need to respect this. Similarly, for any place like any culture you work in, you need to learn about this culture and educate yourself about it and educate yourself about the community. If you work with like in the religious side, you need to respect this. Just don't make fun of any one religion or practice, even if you disagree with this, even if it doesn't make sense to you. You need to respect this, yeah, and uh, and observe the norms. Like if there are certain dressing codes that you need to adhere to then adhere to this dressing code. Like for example, like some religious site, like for example like the Vatican, like if you want one day you'll visit the Vatican, there are certain dress code. Like you cannot wear certain type of, of like there are certain dressing codes that you need to adhere to. Yeah, so you need to adhere to dressing like to the culture and norms of indigenous society. Indigenous society, particularly, they have, generally speaking, a very strong environmental stewardship, and they are the one who's managing this land and taking care of it. So you need to keep this in mind. It's not that you just take your interest, collect your data, and leave them. You like especially when you work with indigenous community, work with them, make a close collaboration with them, and like design the work with them. It's not that like, oh, here this is the data that I want to collect, and okay, thank you, and I leave. No, just work with them and participate and learn from them and participate in this environmental stewardship that they are already like good at, yeah, and respect their culture and norm. Be sensitive to the need of vulnerable population like children. So obtain appropriate consent, for example, from parents and children if you are working with children and any vulnerable population. Yeah, be sensitive to their need. Okay. Now, due to in the where in the data collection process, respect the site and disturb little as possible. I give you an example. For example, so like you build trust and convey extent of anticipated disturbance in gaining access. So, for example, like when we were at this Mauna Loa mountain this, summit, like in Hawaii, we were conveying, like we told them we will doing some geophysics work, hydrogeophysics work. We will be telling them like this hydrogeophysics work, it has like minimum disturbance. We'll be creating some holes. We'll putting the instrument there, and then after period of time, we will come out, get out our instrument, and then uh, everything will look as it used to be. We will not get near to the summit, we'll not get close to the summit, we're not going to do any geophysics or any disturbance near to the summit because we know that this is something you respect and you don't want us to be there. Yeah. And we didn't do it. Yeah. We didn't go there, not even close. We didn't even thought about it. Yeah. Make certain that all participants receive the same treatment. So that's important. Like, let's say, for example, you are measuring like water usage behavior for post control and experiment group. So, like, you have some water saving tips. So, for the control group, you don't tell them this water saving tips, and the experiment group, like, you let them apply this saving tips. So what you need to do, you need to give them all treatment. Even the control group, they are not going to apply this water saving tips in the experiment. You need to tell them these tips so that they can use it later on. But you tell them you will be the control group. You're not going to be using these tips because I want to examine how these tips will improve water saving or something like this. But provide them with these tips so that they can later use it after this experiment. Yeah. Avoid, of course, deceiving participants. So be clear the purpose of your study and how data will be used. Be clear about it. Yeah. Uh, Disturb as little also could include, for example, conducting like tracer experiment. I should tell the user in advance that have us to cover all this. Like you inject a tracer, this tracer will like food color, so that the water in your river or in your lake might turn red. So you need to inform the participant or the community, like tell them we will be injecting like tracers. If you find that your water looks red or green or blue or any weird current, don't worry, these are natural food additives. They are eatable, like similar to things that we eat in our foods. They don't have any health hazard. So you need to provide this information and don't change your protocol. Like if you are using food color, don't use salt, for example, because if you use salt as a tracer, that could salinize the soil. So avoid doing this. Yeah. Uh, Respect potential power imbalance and the exploitation of participant. Uh, so that is also power imbalance. Like for example, like when you are introducing water farmers. Uh, like local farmers about water resources management, avoid like imposing your opinion or ensure privacy of the data, and involve farmer as a collaborator in the shaped research question. So that is how you would respect don't like impose your opinion. Like for example, you are investigating pesticides, don't impose like your opinions. A pesticide like have this harmful like health impact, so on, so on. We observe this, and that's what we are expecting to get. Don't observe this opinion, but engage with them. Tell them that's what we know so far. This is the objective of this study. This is our hypothesis. What do you think of this hypothesis? And guess what? You will get wealth of information beyond what you have in mind. They will tell you, oh, maybe this was legacy practice. We use like this legacy pesticide, but now this is different story. Now that's what we are doing. This now, and maybe there was this. They can inform you even about previous research that has been done. Like there was this group out there. They were studying this, and this is their findings. So involve them in this discussion. You will learn a lot. Yeah. Do not use participant by gathering data and leaving site. So provide reward for participants. That's usually very important. Like you work in an agriculture site. So for example, like we work here in agriculture sites, yeah, and that are not necessarily run by FGCU, could be run by other university like University of Florida, EFAS, like, and we work with them, yeah, in a collaborative research project. They give us access to their site. They allow us to use their farm. And guess what? Like when they do this, these farm already, they have some workers. They have like some technicians who are working there. And then when you are working there, you need help. You need, for example, water source. You need a lot of logistics. And who will be helping you? Their technician and their field workers. These are the one who will be helping you. And so you need to provide kind of reward for, because that's an extra work for them, yeah, so you need to provide a kind of reward for this, like technician or workers who are helping you. It could be something informal, like for example you could take them out and their family for dinner, yeah, informal, yeah, dinner, yeah, or something like this, yeah, so that's basically one thing you can do, yeah. Avoid collecting harmful information. That's like, don't collect harmful information, like you are not like a police investigator, yeah. So in interviewing about pesticide uses, for example, like avoid propping for sensitive or legal practice and focus on like safe agriculture practice and the outline protocol, yeah. uh, if you was giving this information, yes, then use it, but don't keep propping for sensitive or illegal practice or things like that. Yeah. Unless this came to you. Like in your data analysis, yeah, avoid the sliding with participant, like going naive. So if you got multiple perspective, report this multiple perspective. Don't just lean like, let's say one perspective support more what you want to show or your hypothesis. Don't lean to this, report multiple perspective, even negative perspective, positive perspective, and all perspective, whether you say align more with your interest or don't align with your interest. Yeah. Avoid disclosing only positive results. That's very important. So like, let's say you are trying a new, like we are working with some agriculture product and we are trying a new soil amendment, and for example we find like, so I will only report the positive results, but maybe when I apply this in other field or other plot, no positive, like there was no significant impact or no significant improvement, or even like some controversial effect, like harmful, like the crop was not as good as like when we didn't apply it or something like this. So guess what? Like this contradictory findings, if you hide them, that is stupid. You know why? Because later on somebody else will come and will discover this, yeah. So and then they will know that you did something wrong. But more importantly, you are using a chance, because it's always this contradictory findings. That's where there are research opportunity, because that's where our knowledge gets challenged, and that's where we are saying, oh, so maybe our hypothesis is wrong, maybe what we understand is wrong, or maybe there is something we are missing. And guess what? I've done some research before where I would expect to get like wonderful results, and then these wonderful results, they were not as wonderful as I expect them. And I kept propping why I'm not getting the results as I'm expecting it. And I discovered wonder. And that could lead to more publication, more research, and basically you are, these things are easier to publish, because now you are getting, it's very easy to tell the story. Now we did this, that's what we expecting, but we didn't get this there, we got this problem, and this problem was due to so and so and so. So if we didn't account for this, you will get this problem. So if you don't have positive result or contradictory finding, that's don't see this as, oh my god, I got stuck, or see this as an opportunity. Yeah. Respect the privacy and anonymity of participants. That goes without saying. So use fictitious name, like for example, like this educational research that I'm doing, yeah, about AI. If you like read this publication, sometimes you will find the grades, student grades. I don't publish any information about the students. The grades are just anonymous, so you will not know who got what or anything like this. And the data that I share, you will see the grade, but you will not see student name to it. Yeah. So you need to remove this data or hide this data. Sometimes you are working like, especially in water issue, like when I was working in Hawaii, for example, some of the data that we like well location. This is sensitive information. So the well location in my model is correct, but when you publish this results and you share this data, don't you can there are ways for changing. So like you change the well location and you can and in the map it will not again the results will look the same. All the results are the same, but you are just kind of you are using some I don't remember like the term for it. Like you can check the terms. There is a term for it. Like you are kind of like encrypting or like changing or there is a technical term for that. I just don't recall it at the moment. You're like these type of like sensitive information. Yeah. Okay. Data reporting. Avoid falsifying authorship, evidence, data, finding, and conclusion. So report honestly. Like, I mean, report honestly. That's better for everyone. And I have a video for you. We will learn more about the fabrication, falsification, and the plagiarism. Yeah. Uh, that include also playing with figures. So sometimes people play with the color of figure to show that something that's not important to show it's important, or something that is important to show that's less important. And that is a common practice that you play. You change the color and uh, the not the legend of the figure. Yes, like the legend of the figure or whatever the bar, like the figure bar, the bar of the figure and so that like you can emphasize something that shouldn't be emphasized or hide something that shouldn't be hidden. And guess what, like this will go to peer review, and if the reviewers found this and they will find it, most probably they will find it, that could risk your article getting rejected. If they are nice, they will tell you don't do this, but they could reject your paper. Yeah. Plagiarism, we will learn about this. To avoid plagiarism, like check guidelines for plagiarism because that could differ from one journal to another, especially with your preprints and prior works that you have done. So sometimes, like before I publish a paper, I will make a preprint of it, like put a version of it online, an early version of it online, uh, which is just to put it there and then submit this to publication. So check some journal will tell you and then will tell you that maybe like remove the preprint while it is like under review. Some journal will not tell you this. Yeah. And then after you publish your paper, you can still keep the preprint. So you can still have like the preprint and the published papers. There's no problem with this. That's not considered plagiarism, yeah, because it's clear that like this is an early version of this work, yeah. So this is clear, yeah. Avoid disclosing information that would harm participants. That goes without saying, like this pesticide example, for example. So if you know that this information will hide the participant or hide this, don't do this. Yeah, don't harm. I mean, anyone. Yeah. Communicate clearly and straightforward, appropriate language. Share the data with others. We have a one lesson about this, like data sharing and data management plans. We will have one lesson, like you are uh, responsible for sharing, like especially like let's say like most of the research that I do, I got funded from like National Science Foundation, EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. This is uh, this is public money. So I have a responsibility. Also, I'm using public money to get this data or build this model. I have the responsibility of sharing this data and sharing this model for other people to use because this is public money. Yeah. So I have this responsibility of sharing data, and we will learn how to do this. Keep raw data and other material. Rule of thumb, like if you are doing like raw data, collecting samples, whatever, raw data like digital data, the minimum you keep it for 5 years because other people could ask for this data to replicate what you're doing or to redo what you're doing, so you should keep this data for at least. Do not duplicate or piecemeal publication. So sometimes people will publish something, then they do a little bit of a change and then they publish it again, and a little bit of a change and they publish it again. Don't do this. This is not like a good practice. But sometimes it's also not a good practice to put so many things in one publication. So sometimes if there is a justification to do it. So like let's say uh, you are comparing, like you have like two methods, not comparing two methods. There are like two methods, And maybe if you put these two methods in one publication, that publication will be cumbersome, complicated, and you will confuse the reviewers. Then you can have two publications, one for each method, as long as they are rule like generally any journal, like if they found like 20% of the paper was is like like duplication or like similar to if you like one study or two of your previous study on one of your previous studies, they will return the paper to you. It will be rejected. Yeah. And this even before going to the editor, because before when you submit a publication, what will happen is the editorial team will before going to the editor will like do all this automatic check, and now the computer can easily do this automatic check, and then they found that maybe more than 20% of your paper is already was part of some prior work you or other did, your paper would be rejected. That's common thing. Provide complete proof of compliance. That's also when you submit for publication. Most journal will make you sign a statement that there's no conflict of interest or something like this. State who owns the data from this study. So we will learn in details about this about like how to share the data and what different license you can give to your data, so that you will see who owns the data and who can use it for what purpose and who cannot use this data and for what purposes. Yeah. Okay, so uh, that is basically Uh, this is like your textbook. You can check your recommended textbook if you want to read this in more details, yeah, and find about. So now your participation activity is that like out of these or others one, which one would you think would be more relevant for your study? Now let's look at this. This is a good exercise. Let me read it for you. Uh, Let's read it together. Okay. Dr. Wexford is a principal investigator, like a PI, of a large epidemiological study on health of 10,000 agricultural workers. Okay. She has an impressive data set that include information on demographics, environmental exposures, diet, genetics, and various disease outcomes such as cancer and Parkinson's disease, yeah, and Parkinson disease, PD, and ALS. She has just published a paper on the relationship between pesticide exposure and PD, like Parkinson's disease, in a prestigious journal. Now, she is planning to publish many other papers from her datasets because it's a big dataset. So, just published one about Parkinson's disease. She's probably planning to publish another one about ALS and maybe a third or fourth or fifth one about three or four different types of cancers. Yeah. Okay. She received, okay, so now that's her data set. She received a request from another research team that wants access to this complete data set. So the research teams, they want access to this data set that has like 10,000 workers, that has their demographic information, environmental exposure, diets, genetic. This is a huge data. It's a very valuable data set. Yeah? In this data set, they are interested in examining the relationship between pesticide and exposure and skin cancer. So they want to like do like pesticide and like skin cancer. Wexford was planning to conduct this study on this topic already. So one of her cancer study maybe was on like skin cancer. So that she was planning to do this already. So what can she do? Or what is her dilemma first? Or like let me tell you what is her dilemma. So her dilemma is that as a researcher, you have this data set. This data set is very valuable. Very valuable. You have a wealth of knowledge. From this data set, we can learn a lot and we can protect public health. So not sharing a data set with other researchers, that's that's that could be like kind of maybe I don't know, like maybe a crime, because if we understand like what we can learn from this data set, we be able to protect public health and we will be able to uh, improve what we are doing and protect public health. So that's like part of it. Like another part of it that will advance knowledge and improve our scientific research. So it is inappropriate not to share this data set. Another thing that you need, she probably like collected this data set through funding, and this would be public money, just like my research is always public money. So I take public money, yeah, I to collect this data, and then after I collect this data, I don't give this data to the people who give me this money, like to this public money, to protect their health. So that's why she must share this data. That's on one side. But on the other side, guess what? She has to protect also the interest of her research group. So if she gives them this data, this research group will be able to make this publication before like her research group. What does this mean? As a principal investigator, I am responsible for my research group. I'm responsible for my graduate student and postdoc. So if they publish this before my uh, graduate student and postdoc, that will maybe delay the graduation of this student. That will, the student, they need this publication to, like if you are a master student, you need this publication to find a good PhD opportunity. If you are a PhD student, you need this publication to find like a postdoc or a faculty position. If you are a postdoc, you need this publication to find like a faculty position, or wherever you are interested in working in. If you are a faculty member, like the PI, he needs this work. This publication is like, this is like publish or perish, like for to continue keeping his job and for promotion. So he needs to make a living also. He has a family that he needs to support. So on one hand, he has this responsibility toward public health and toward his funding agency. On the other hand, he has this responsibility toward his research group and ensuring their success. So how can you deal with this situation? So now you see the now you see the, the dilemma here, like public health and public money, responsibility toward public health and public money on one side, and responsibility toward my research group, my graduate student, my postdoc, and my family that I'm supporting with my job. Yeah. Uh, so how to deal with this? Yeah. So there are different ways for dealing with this. So you can share with them this data and make them sign an agreement. Tell them, I was already planning to do this. I have a graduate student and that's part of her thesis and she's doing this. And so if you will, I can share with you this data, but you have to make a consent form about, for example, like how are you going to use this data? Like if you go, what are your publication plan? Authorship, like you can agree on authorship also, like because the student, for example, like she collected this data, so this data belonged to that student, that's part of her work. Yeah, so so your responsibility is to protect this. Yeah. Other way is that you can tell them, you can offer them collaboration, research collaboration. Tell them, you know what, we were also wanted to do like this, like skin cancer study. Like, what are you planning to do? Maybe we can do it together. Yeah. But again, you need to clearly say this is the data of my graduate student, and then the graduate student, like, or several graduate student, and this is what like they need to maintain, like to be the first author because they need this to get a job. And that could be like a win-win situation because, for example, guess what? Like that graduate student, maybe after they graduate, uh, they could get a PhD opportunity or a faculty position at this place where they collaborated with. This could be like this collaborator could write like a recommendation letter for them, for example. So that could be like a win-win situation. Yeah. Okay. So this is will be, you can read about, like, I mean, I just summarized this to you, but like you can read this here. Yeah. Okay. So now let's move to another like, remember here we talked about like like forms of academic dishonesty, like falsification, fabrication, and plagiarism. So plagiarism, falsification, and fabrication. So plagiarism, that is I mean, this easy. Like this is basically like you use other work without credit, or self-plagiarism. Like you repeat your work and you use it again, as I described. Like this 20% of your prior work. Like anything you do shouldn't be less than 20%. If you quoted anything from any previous work, you should also like you cannot use something you used before. Like for example, like when I write a paper, sometimes I would use something from another paper. I quote myself. So you need to quote yourself. Just you need to cite yourself just as you will cite any other paper. So if you are using prior work you did before, you just cite yourself just as you will cite any prior work of any other researcher. So that is plagiarism. Like it's be like you use other work without giving them credit, without citing them, and self plagiarism. Falsification is that you alter the data or the result dishonestly. So let's say, for example, like you have like data and like see you have like this very good trend here, but like at the early here, maybe you don't have this good data here. And then like you want to fit like a regression curve. So if you fit a regression curve, that would be good. But like if you include this data, that will screw up your regression curve. So what you do? So some people, what they will do, they will like remove this data and only keep this data and say, oh, see, we have a very good relationship. That's called falsification. But maybe what you can do, if this data need to be removed, you still can remove it, but you have to stay like why you truncated your data and give the justification for this. So basically, maybe this data need to be removed because this data is below the detection limit of my instrument. So if this is below the detection limit of your instrument, there is no need to include this data because you know that this is already wrong. It's below the detection limit of your instrument, and this so your instrument cannot function here. So if you want to truncate your data, if you just remove your data without mentioning this, that would be falsification. But if you mention uh, any data below any recording below the detection limit of the instrument, um, was removed. But that could get you into an issue because sometimes there are zeros, like you are not like you are not detecting anything. So you need to discuss like how if these are not like just errors, like if these are zero, how did you detect this? Like where's there's this is not present. So you need to be careful, and that's why there's a very thin line between like if you want to do this, you need to be very transparent and discuss like make sure that what you are doing is rigorous. Yeah, you're not just doing like just truncating your data non-rigorously and you are removing part of your data. Yeah, so that's falsification. Yeah. Fabrication is that you make up the data or results. So like you said like I didn't collect this. Like you said, oh, here's the data that you didn't even collect, but you claim that you collected and you start analyzing it or things like that. Yeah. So that's fabrication. Or like maybe you did like at two sites and then you're lazy to do at the other site, so you will just make up the data for the third site. Or like you are interviewing like 10 participants and you couldn't like do all of them, so maybe you interviewed five and then you make up the other five. That's called fabrication also. Yeah. So what I want you to do, I think that's the last participation activity and the last thing. Not the last. We have one more thing for this course. I want you like please watch this video. It's only like 9 minutes. It's a very interesting video, very interesting, and you will see some plagiarism, fabrication, falsification, and fabrication case study from actual science for like even very famous researchers or like not famous, very famous, but like for some like reputable, I would say, not famous, reputable researcher, and see like why this is very harmful to everyone. So please watch this video, read this article, and answer this question. Like, if I were you, like, if you are a groundwater hydrologist, that might be of interest to you. But generally speaking, for construction management student, for water student, for computer science student, and other student, I highly recommend that you watch this video. That would be very interesting video to watch. So you can either like read this article or watch this video. If I were you, I'll watch the video instead of reading the article. And then like see like share your thoughts on what stood out to you and what takeaway did you gain from this video. Very interesting video. And comment on your favorite post. Like favorite post from your classmates. So like one of your classmates like made something you like, just comment on this. Again, social media activity, Facebook. Yeah. Okay. Last thing I want to cover for this lesson is that other deviation from acceptable research practice. So here I'm just putting other deviation. I got it from this site from research. And this is also another participation activity. I want you to read these ones carefully and then on Canvas, which deviation, one or more than one deviation, attract your attention most and why. So for example, publishing the same paper at two different journals, yeah, without telling the editor, or submitting the same paper for different journal and see where it will publish first. Not informing your collaborator about intent. That's not nice. Like for example, like you want to work with someone so that you learn what they are doing and you steal the research and you go do it on your own. That is not nice. That's like stealing. You're stealing because as a researcher, your capital is your ideas and your knowledge and your ideas. So if somebody came, steal your ideas, steal your knowledge, and then go do it without like involving you, because this knowledge you spend like you did this knowledge you spend lot you did a lot of learning and a lot of studying and a lot of hard working or working, not necessarily hard working, a lot of work. You did a lot of work to come up with this idea. So if somebody came and took this idea from you, that's not nice. Yeah. So not informing about like your intent. Yeah. Uh, uh, including like that's another thing, like including an author to a paper in return to a favor. So like you return favors to one another, so you include him in your papers, and that is very harmful practice. Like you see some researchers, they do this. They will like, I will add you on my papers, you add me on your papers, and then we will have at the end of the day or the end of the year we'll have more publications. So if you, instead of like publishing two or three like papers, you will end up publishing 10 or 12 because of doing this. And that is harmful. That tricks the academic system because, for example, like if you apply for promotion, you could rig the promotion process because now like the committee will say, oh, you know what, this guy is applying for promotion and he has 10 publications. So if this guy can do 10 publication, then why another person who only have two publications should be promoted? He should also have like 10 publication like this guy. So that could rig the system. And maybe this guy who did this two publication, he's honest, he did everything this, but and this guy he's just like doing these like doing something dishonest. So that could be, that's also something critical. Discussing confidential data with like you will be reviewing papers, you will be reviewing proposals, so it's not nice. Like this confidential data, don't discuss it, don't give other people idea away as this confidential data. Even worse, don't use it. Like you view a proposal and you say, oh wow, this is a great idea, let me just do it, let me submit a similar proposal. Don't do this. And sometimes I review the proposal, and while reviewing this proposal, some ideas came to me that not in this proposal, but just this proposal inspired me with new idea. I even didn't submit this because I was like not sure whether I'm like, even though it was, I'm not taking the direct idea of these proposals that I'm reviewing, but I was inspired by this proposal, but I didn't review because if you, there are certain things that are black that are, and certain things that are white, and there are certain things that are unclear. So if something is black and white, these are clear, but there are sometimes vague things that are unclear. These vague things, just is better to avoid them. Yeah, in order not to be in trouble and in order not to harm anyone. Um, Trimming, like we told about trimming the outliers in your data, inappropriate statistical techniques. You use inappropriate statistical techniques uh, uh, to highlight significance of your data or something like this. Uh, con- when you do a literature review, sometimes what people will do, they will fail to acknowledge some contribution in order to highlight the novelty of the research. So let's say there are similar works that similar to what I'm doing, even better, more novels than what I'm doing. I will intentionally not include it in my literature search in order to highlight the novelty of my work. This is unethical. Yeah. To contribute other people in the field or relevant prior work. Yeah. Stretching the truth of a grant application or stretching the truth of job application. Sometimes we uh, how to say, like, unconsciously or maybe consciously will do this due to the competitive nature of these things, or due not necessarily to the competitive nature of these type of, like, getting a grant or getting a job, but due to the culture. Like, so in this culture, that many people will try to write like a shiny, like a cover letter or whatever. So you try to do this, and you little bit, like, kind of make things like a little bit more shiny than what they are actually are. That could be the culture. Yeah. So that could be, you could be forced to try to avoid this, yeah, as much as you can. Yeah. But if that's the culture, also don't do just also, like, see what's recommendation letter, for example. Like, when student ask me to write recommendation letter, uh, I need, sometimes I will hide some of the negative aspect to some extent, yes, because this is the culture. Because, like, if I know that, like, in this culture, if I wrote anything negative, they will exaggerate it, or they will take it, like, make it big. They will think, oh, that this person is horrible, that's why this person is saying something negative about him. uh, but if you don't feel comfortable writing a recommendation letter, you can just tell the student, no, like, I'm not familiar with your work or something like this, and you excuse. Yeah. If you're not willing to write, like, strong recommendation letter. Okay, give same research project to two graduate students, see who will do faster. I mean, this is not a decent thing to do. Yeah. Overworking, neglecting, or exposing a student, overworking a student or exposing them to hazard. So, like, for example, when you work with a student, when you become a faculty, don't overwork your student. Yeah. And similarly, don't also let your faculty overwork you. And like, for example, when we go to field work, uh, like, try to protect, like, the student, like, and like, for example, like, go to field work, you find like a nice shady place for them to rest, and tell them, like, you work only for 2 hours. After 2 hours, you need to go sit in the shady place for at least 20 minutes, have rest, drink plenty of water, eat food, wash your hand, and come back to work. Yeah. Don't stay, like, in the heat for more than 2 hours. So, like, these things. Yeah. Maintain research data for a reasonable period. We talk about this. Anyway, I'm not gonna go through all this list. That's like your homework, like, or your participation activity, is that, like, you read this list, make authorize a copy of data, exposing student to biological risk, and so on, like, not disclosing financial interest. So I'm not going to read this list, so please read this list and see which one stand out for you. The ones that stand out for me, for example, uh, delivery of, I don't know, I don't know what is this here, the delivery of, like, deliberately underestimating the clinical significance of a new drug to obtain economic benefits. That's one. The ones that stand out to me, so let me answer this question. Oops, the ones that stand out for me, where is this one? So this would be one, like, including, like, your friends on your paper, so that you get more papers. That, as I mentioned, that would rig the academic system and will not be good. Another one that stand out to me, stretching the truth of job application curriculum vitae. I talked about this already, because we somehow tend to do this, so that is something we might do, and so that's something maybe I need to learn more about and how to deal with something like this. Failing to keep good record of your research, that's something I experienced before. Like, I contacted some author, asked them, could you please provide me, I'm trying to reproduce this work, could you please provide me with this data? And then they said, oh, we don't have the data anymore. So, and we will learn. So that's not nice. Like, if they had this data, that was our intention. Like, we will get this data and collaborate with them and do this research together, and that would be like a good publication for them. But since they didn't share the data with us, then we ended up not collaborating with them. Okay. So I think that's it. That's all for this video. Please do this participation activities, and I will see you in the next video.